Aoi was an ordinary man who suffered a huge loss due to the falling prices of real estate. In desperation to recover his money, he signed a contract to sell his apartment for 850 million won. As soon as he received the money, he invested all of it in virtual currency. At first, his gamble seemed to work. The value of the currency skyrocketed by 800%, and Aoi believed he was about to become very rich. But overnight, the currency crashed by 900%, and Aoi lost everything. From being a billionaire on paper, he became completely broke. Not only did he spend all his savings on a small apartment, but he also found himself trapped in a murder case, forced to become an accomplice. All of these events were rooted in the dark side of the real estate industry. The story takes place in South Korea during a year of rapid development. Skyscrapers rose quickly, and housing prices soared until August 2024, especially in Seoul. Aoi was a quiet and hard-working employee, holding on to hope despite watching the value of his mortgaged apartment fall every day. Media reports kept brainwashing young people, saying housing prices would rise again. To save money, Aoi stayed at the office until everyone else left so he could eat leftover food and avoid paying for his own meals. Even at home, he avoided using electricity, using only a fan instead of air conditioning, and bathed using bottled water from the office. He found notes on his door from a downstairs neighbor asking him to keep quiet. But Aoi wasn't making any noise. In fact, the loud banging sounds often came from upstairs. He reported it to property management, then put on a raincoat and left for his second job. His main salary couldn't cover the rising interest on his housing loan. So he worked extra hard, returning home late at night, completely exhausted. At around 4:30 a.m., Aoi was awakened by loud banging sounds. He thought he heard something near the door and checked the intercom. He saw a shadow. His heart almost stopped. It was the woman from downstairs, the same one who left the notes. Though she smiled, her presence was terrifying. She insisted Aoi was making the noise and warned him that next time, her husband would come, and there would be blood. Aoi tried to explain it wasn't him, but she barged into his house. As soon as she stepped in, the noise that had been going on mysteriously stopped. She assumed he looked down on her for being a renter and left angrily, but just as she left, the noise started again from upstairs. Now fed up, Aoi went up to confront the neighbors. He first knocked on a door and was greeted by a tattooed man who called him sir and quickly blamed the upstairs neighbor, then shut the door. As Aoi continued upward, he saw the actual upstairs neighbor leaving for her usual early morning basketball session. She confirmed the noise came from above her unit, so Aoi went up to the 17th floor. There he found an apartment with a small dog and wooden sticks on the floor, which made him suspect that the elderly man living there was responsible. The old man became angry and told him to complain to the resident representative instead. Aoi then went to the top floor where the representative lived. After knocking for a long time, someone from the opposite unit invited him in. The place was luxurious and warm, unlike Aoi's. The representative already guessed why he had come and tried to calm him down, saying the noise was man-made and not worth reporting to authorities. The woman downstairs, the goddess, was actually renting that unit from her, and she promised not to renew the lease once the contract expired. To stop Aoi from complaining further, the representative suddenly offered him a thick bundle of money as compensation. At first, Aoi wanted to refuse, but the heavy weight of his housing loan made him take it. Before he left, she shared a secret. The government was about to build a subway station in their area, and once the project was announced, property prices would skyrocket. Feeling satisfied and hopeful again, Aoi returned home, only to discover that his bicycle tires had been slashed. He shared the news with a close friend who had been advising him about how to make money. This friend had recently attended a party with business leaders and learned a secret. The value of a certain virtual currency was about to hit its lowest point, 815, and then shoot up by 815 times on South Korea's Independence Day, August 15th, before crashing again. This was a market manipulation plan. Although Aoi was skeptical, the idea stuck in his mind. Even while working his night job delivering food, he couldn't focus and kept checking the currency's value. It fluctuated wildly, which made him more and more tempted. Then he suddenly got hit by a motorcycle. Everything seemed to be falling apart for him. Feeling desperate, Aoi noticed a second-hand real estate office nearby. He called his friend to confirm the information about the cryptocurrency rise. That same night, he made the bold decision to sell his apartment, which was worth 1 billion, for just 850 million. The buyer was so surprised by the low price that they brought in investors right away. The currency value had already reached 1,200 points, and Awi quickly signed the contract. Unaware that this was all part of a bigger trap, Awi rushed home without even hiring a car. He saw the currency drop to 888 and decided this was the moment. He logged in and set everything to buy at exactly 815. Once purchased, the entire world seemed to go quiet. Awi didn't sleep a wink that night, watching as the value doubled, turning his profit into more than 1 billion. To make sure he wouldn't lose his chance, Awi wrote down every detail of when he would sell. August 15th at 8:15 a.m. From that moment, Awi completely changed. He cleaned up his messy home and became a new man. But then, in the middle of the night, his door opened by itself. Someone sneaked in and installed something strange, then left. Moments later, strange noises woke him up again. And, even with earplugs, the vibrations wouldn't stop. The tattooed neighbor came by, insisting he needed to check the noise source. But as always, when someone entered Awi's apartment, the noise would suddenly stop, leaving even him confused. And as soon as the man left, the sound would start again. Awi was reaching a breaking point. Awi thought the noise might be coming from downstairs, so he reacted in frustration. But then he noticed someone suspiciously recording something downstairs. When he went to confront the downstairs neighbor, she refused to open the door. So Awi stayed alone near the building entrance and confirmed that someone was indeed living in her apartment. After that night, Awi shut all his windows and doors and focused completely on tracking the virtual currency market. Though his living conditions were harsh, too cold even to turn on a light, let alone stay in a hotel, he believed all the suffering would be worth it if the profits continued. As his earnings multiplied 5 times, Awi finally turned on the air conditioner for a short time. He even ordered a little food. But right then, there was a loud knock on his door. When he opened it, many neighbors had gathered, along with the property representative. They came inside to check his home and found a vibrating stick, a kind used for personal pleasure, that was remote-controlled and had been secretly planted in his room earlier by someone else. It looked bad, and Awi couldn't explain anything. It seemed like the downstairs neighbor had set him up. A fight broke out, and though Awi was not the type to fight, he ended up getting hurt and hitting his head on the wall. Awi was arrested and taken to the police station. On August 15th, the very day he needed to sell his virtual currency at 8:15 a.m. He had only 6 minutes left, and if he missed the deadline, all his earnings would be lost. He asked the police to return his phone, but the screen was broken during the scuffle. Desperate and on the edge of a breakdown, Awi faked a stomachache to use the bathroom. The moment his handcuffs were off, he ran into an office with a computer. Though the screen was cracked, he managed to log in. Just as he was about to sell all his currency, the police tasered him. Even with 2 electric shocks, Awi kept going, using only his eyes and a mouse. He was almost there. It's huge. Hours later, Awi woke up. The person who bailed him out was the representative from the building's top floor. Everyone in the community was celebrating the government's announcement that a new subway station would be built there. Property values would soon skyrocket. But Awi was in no mood to celebrate. He rushed home and turned on his computer. All his money was gone. Everything he had earned disappeared in an instant. This pain was something only a gambler could understand. Full of regret but unable to turn back time, Awi stayed up all night writing a suicide note. He climbed onto his windowsill, ready to end his life. But just then, he heard that strange vibrating sound again. He saw someone inside the downstairs apartment. Fueled by anger, he grabbed a hammer and rushed downstairs, ready to confront them. At the same time, he bumped into his upstairs neighbor who was in distress and crying for help. They both entered Awi's home, and again the vibrating sound continued. The neighbor, whose name was Yubai, comforted Awi and talked him out of his suicidal thoughts. The next morning, the two went together to confront the neighbor. Surprisingly, the door to the apartment was unlocked. They entered and searched, but found no noise-making devices. However, they did find unpaid bills and a house sale contract. It turned out that the buyer of that apartment was the same person Awi had sold his apartment to, the building's top-floor representative. Even the tattooed neighbor had sold his apartment to her. Awi finally realized this was all a part of a bigger plan. They went to confront the top-floor representative. While Awi kept her distracted, he found a 24K gold pistol in a locked room that needed a fingerprint to open. Due to time limits, he couldn't investigate more. Back at home, Aoi looked at the broken phone that had been returned to him from the police. It had been used to control the vibrating stick, and though it couldn't be unlocked, it was still connected to Wi-Fi. Aoi smartly started testing Wi-Fi signals around the building and found the strongest signal outside the tattooed neighbor's door. To confirm everything, he invited the neighbor to the building's sauna. Pretending he forgot to pay his membership, Aoi tricked the man into handing over his building access card, then secretly swapped it. While the man relaxed in the sauna, Aoi returned to the apartment and used the card to open the door. Inside, he found piles of documents showing the entire building was under surveillance. Then he opened another room and discovered hundreds of vibrating sticks, all designed to create noise. The real mastermind behind everything was the tattooed man. He had been using noise to manipulate the value of properties. Just as Aoi was about to leave, he heard the man entering and quickly hid inside a cabinet. He stayed hidden until nightfall and crawled out quietly. Picking up a hammer, Aoi almost attacked him but held back. He quickly hid under the bed when someone else arrived. It was the downstairs woman, the same one who had tried to blame Aoi before. She had come to argue and fight with the tattooed man. Their conflict escalated, and in the end, man killed the woman. He then tried to pin the murder on Aoi by calling the police. But Aoi stepped out, trembling, and the man turned out to still be alive. He ruined his plan, and he had no choice but to kill him too. Aoi, facing death once again, agreed to help him cover everything up. He had already been pushed so far that even death no longer scared him. Together, they carried the bodies to the top-floor representative's house, wrapped them in black plastic, and left them there. That's when Aoi learned the tattooed man's real name, Long Chen-hao. He had once worked at a detective agency. The female representative used to be a prosecutor. A year ago, she had teamed up with corrupt developers to profit from illegal construction. She had destroyed Long Chen-hao's career, and he had returned to take revenge and recover a secret ledger with proof of their crimes. But when he opened the safe, it only contained money. Meanwhile, Aoi found new motivation to survive. He went to retrieve the gold pistol but couldn't unlock the safety. The man caught on. Just then, the representative appeared holding a gun that sprayed knockout gas. A brutal fight broke out. Aoi stayed by the door, unable to fight. Eventually, Long Chen-hao overpowered the man but was stabbed and fatally injured. In his last moment, he fell. What? The representative saw her chance and attacked Aoi, pinning him down and stabbing him too. He collapsed in a pool of blood. In the end, we learn that the representative had been using low prices to buy up apartments. The tattooed man's noise tactics helped her lower market value. The secret ledger, which contained all the proof, had been sitting in plain sight on the table. Then, just when it seemed like the representative had won, Long Chen-hao, barely alive, stood up again. Using the last of his strength, he pulled her down into death with him. Meanwhile, Aoi gathered the evidence and his original housing contract. He burned everything in the microwave, destroying the only proof. He had managed to save his apartment and ruin the corrupt plans behind it. A fire broke out, consuming the entire top floor, and the twisted secrets with it.